Dear students, welcome to my YouTube channel, Indian Anatomist. Today's topic is face development.
In the third week of intrauterine life, the embryo has ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. The ectoderm produces neural crest cells that move throughout the embryo to generate face structures. In the third week of intrauterine life, the oropharyngeal or buccopharyngeal membrane arises from the ectoderm and endoderm, the future site for face development. Now coming to the formation of facial primordium. In the fourth week of IUL, the buccopharyngeal membrane breaks down to form the oral cavity, where the alimentary tract begins. Externally at the same time as the fourth week of intrauterine life, the face starts to develop and derive from three facial prominences or processes. These prominences or eminences or processes are produced by underlying mesoderm of first pharyngeal arch. The cranial neural crest cells, CNCC, which form the face, migrate into the head and neck and combine with mesodermal cells. By the end of the sixth week of IUL, the external face is completed. During the face development, there are five facial primordium appear in the form of prominences or processes that surrounds the stomadeum or primitive mouth. Initially, the stomadeum is bounded between the head bulge, contains primitive prosencephalon, above, and the pericardial bulge below. About face development, the first pharyngeal arch gives rise to five facial prominences. What are those facial prominences? They are 1. Median unpaired, frontonasal prominences. 2. Paired maxillary prominences of the right and left side. And 3 is the mandibular prominences of the right and left sides. Now, I will discuss the frontonasal process. The frontonasal process arises from mesenchyme produced by the neural crest cells near the forebrain and ventral midbrain. The frontal region of the frontonasal process produces the forehead, while the nasal portion produces the dorsum of the nose and the cephalic, or upper part of the stomadeum, including the philtrum. The lateral part of it is further divided into medial and lateral nasal processes that encircle the developing nasal pit formed by ectoderm. Medial nasal process joins with the remaining frontonasal process, thus forming the philtrum and middle of upper lip. Lateral nasal process forms ala of nose and joins with maxillary process, thus forming part of upper jaw. Coming to the maxillary process, these are bilateral processes or prominences, derived from the mesoderm, and neural crest cells that migrate into the first pharyngeal arch to generate maxillary mesenchyme during the fourth week of development. The maxillary prominences forms the lateral boundary of stomadeum, maxilla or upper jaw, zygoma or cheekbone, and squamous portion of the temporal bone. In addition to upper jaw and lip, it also produces a pair of palatal processes. At last, I will explain the mandibular process. These are bilateral prominences or processes that are also a derivative of the first branchial arch-like maxillary processes. During the fourth week, mandibular prominences are formed and enlarged, then they merge at the midline to form the caudal or lower part of the stomadeum and lower jaw. Recall the colors for a better understanding of face development. Common face development model available in the Anatomy Museum. Number 1, yellow color represents the right and left medial nasal process. Number 2, blue color, right and left lateral nasal process. Number 3, orange represents the right and left maxillary process that forms the upper jaw. Number 4, the peach color represents the right and left mandibular process that forms the lower jaw. Finally, the double head arrow represents the frontonasal process. Final formation of face development model. The yellow color indicates the frontonasal process. Blue color indicates the right and left lateral nasal process. The orange color indicates the right and left maxillary process, forms upper jaw. The peach color indicates the right and left mandibular process, forms lower jaw. In the face, upper lip develops from the fusion of the right and left maxillary process with the median frontonasal process. Philtrum develops from median frontonasal process, asterisk representing the philtrum. Finally, the lower lip is formed by the fusion of the right and left mandibular process. Human faces have several muscles that close and open orifices of the face in addition to facial expression. The facial nerve supplies these facial muscles that are developed from second pharyngeal arch.
Dear students, we talked about face development extensively. I hope you understood well to help your education. Follow for video updates. Thank you to everybody.